In the biting chill of an autumn dusk, the city's underbelly revealed its hidden truths. A world where broken dreams and fleeting moments of kindness intersected in the most unexpected ways. Along a graffiti-marred alley, where the glow of neon lights struggled to pierce the gathering darkness, young Micah wandered. Barefoot and dressed in ragged layers, he carried little more than the weight of his hardships. Yet, cradled against his heart was his most prized possession, a battered, once vibrant toy truck. This small token, salvaged from a forgotten corner of a toy store and miraculously surviving years of neglect, symbolized hope, resilience, and the tender vestiges of a lost childhood. Micah's life had been defined by scarcity. Every day was a struggle for warmth, shelter, and the simple dignity that every child deserved. The bustling city, indifferent to the pain etched on the faces of those on its fringes, had long since turned its back on him. But on this particular evening, as twilight softened the edges of despair, fate conspired to alter the narrative of his small, overlooked existence. A distant wail pierced the ambient hum of the city. Drawn to the sound like a moth to a flickering flame, Micah approached a narrow passage where he found a fragile cradle of humanity. A small baby crying inconsolably in a rickety stroller, abandoned by the curb. The infant's face was streaked with tears, and the tiny body shivered in the encroaching cold. The scene struck Micah with a profound empathy. He remembered all too well the days when his own heart had cried out in longing for warmth and tenderness. Without a moment's hesitation, he crouched beside the baby and whispered soft, tentative words of comfort. In that fragile exchange, something stirred within him. The toy truck, his only possession that had ever brought him joy, suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the urgent need for solace before the helpless child. With an instinct that transcended his own self-interest, Micah reached into the depths of his threadbare coat pocket, retrieved the cherished toy, and offered it to the crying infant. In the gentle clink of plastic wheels against concrete, a quiet promise was forged, that even in the darkest moments, compassion could shine through the cracks. Unbeknownst to Micah, his act of selflessness did not go unnoticed. As he knelt by the stroller, a pair of watchful eyes emerged from the shadowed recesses of a nearby doorway. Detective Elena Reyes, whose steady gaze had seen too many lives marred by cruelty and injustice, had been trailing a lead connected to a series of mysterious disappearances that had unsettled the city. The scene before her, a homeless child giving away his sole treasure, stirred a latent curiosity within her. Was it a simple act of kindness, or did it hold a deeper, more symbolic significance tied to the unfolding enigma of the city's underworld? Elena's mind raced as she took in every detail. The desperate vulnerability in Micah's eyes, the silent plea in the infant's tearful gaze, and the subtle glimmer of something unexpected. A fragile hope that could still be nurtured in the midst of urban decay. The detective sensed that this was no random act. In a world where every gesture could be a clue, Micah's decision seemed to resonate like a carefully planted marker in a labyrinth of crime and sorrow. The city whispered its secrets in the rustle of wind through abandoned buildings and the distant hum of late-night traffic. Elena knew that beneath the surface of these seemingly isolated moments lay a network of interwoven stories, each thread leading to an intricate tapestry of human error and redemption. Micah's gift, though seemingly trivial, echoed the age-old narrative of sacrifice and renewal, a theme that had often reappeared in the most unlikely of circumstances. At that moment, the baby's cries softened, replaced by a tentative, almost imperceptible smile as the toy truck, now glistening with the remnants of the fading daylight, captured its attention. The child's innocent delight served as a poignant counterpoint to the hardened realities of the urban streets. In that bittersweet instant, Elena's heart was moved by the duality of human nature, the simultaneous capacity for cruelty and kindness. She decided, then and there, that she would follow this slender thread, hopeful that it might lead her to unravel the tangled mystery behind the recent string of crimes that had shaken the community. As the night deepened, Micah retreated into the labyrinth of darkened alleys, his small figure swallowed by the encroaching shadows. He carried within him the warmth of his sacrifice, unaware that his simple act of kindness had set in motion events that would soon ripple through the very core of the city's underworld. Detective Reyes remained at the scene a little longer, meticulously taking mental notes and photographing the forlorn tableau. The image of a homeless boy giving his only treasure to a crying baby would soon serve as a symbolic linchpin in her investigation. A reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected gifts come wrapped in the guise of simple human decency. In the hours that followed, while the city slumbered under a blanket of uneasy quiet, unseen currents began to shift. Rumors of lost children, clandestine meetings, and hidden transactions started to surface among the locals. The streets, known for their indifferent silence, now murmured of secrets too dark to ignore. And at the heart of it all, the memory of a solitary act, a toy truck, a baby's smile, and a homeless boy's unconditional generosity, glowed like a beacon of hope amid the gathering gloom. Micah's journey was only just beginning, and the consequences of his deed, though shrouded in mystery, promised to be as profound as they were perilous. In a city where every shadow held a story and every act of kindness could be a prelude to tragedy, the line between right and wrong was often blurred. Yet, in the delicate interplay of light and dark, of despair and redemption, one truth remained. Even the smallest gift could ignite a spark that might one day illuminate the path to justice and healing. Thus, under the watchful eyes of fate and law, the stage was set for an unfolding drama that would challenge the very essence of morality. As the night's silence gave way to the first stirrings of dawn, the city braced itself for revelations that would soon shake its core. And for Micah, an unexpected gift was waiting just around the corner. As dawn broke over the city, its muted light cast long shadows that seemed to whisper of secrets yet to be unveiled. Detective Elena Reyes left the scene with a heavy sense of purpose, her mind abuzz with questions about the homeless boy's selfless act. The image of Micah's quiet sacrifice, his battered toy truck cradled in his small, calloused hands, was seared into her memory, serving as both a symbol of hope and a cryptic clue in the larger puzzle of recent crimes. Determined to unravel the mystery, she embarked on a journey that would lead her deep into the tangled web of the city's underbelly. Back at her modest office, Elena meticulously reviewed the case files that had been piling up over the past few weeks. The files chronicled a series of unsettling disappearances and inexplicable events, many of which were dismissed as random acts of misfortune. But now, as she re-examined each detail, she began to notice a pattern, a subtle connection between these cases and the unexpected act of kindness displayed by Micah. In each report, there were murmurs of an almost ethereal presence, an undercurrent of hope intermingled with despair that defied conventional explanations. Her investigation took her to the local community center, a haven where the city's most vulnerable citizens sought shelter from the relentless hardships of urban life. There, she encountered Mrs. Alvarez, a gentle soul whose wisdom had been honed by years of witnessing the city's triumphs and tragedies. Over steaming cups of coffee, Elena recounted the events of that fateful evening, describing the homeless boy, the crying infant, and the enigmatic circumstances surrounding the act of giving. Mrs. Alvarez listened intently, her eyes glistening with empathy and a hint of sorrow. "You see, Detective," Mrs. Alvarez began slowly, "in our community, we often speak of fate and the delicate balance between despair and hope. Sometimes, a small gesture can ripple through the darkness, touching lives in ways we cannot imagine." Her words resonated deeply with Elena, reinforcing the notion that Micah's act was more than a simple moment of charity. It was a beacon in a storm of desolation. Compelled to delve deeper, Elena decided to interview those who frequented the alley where Micah had been seen. Among them was a street vendor named Jorge, whose keen observations had made him a repository of local lore. In his weathered, calloused voice, Jorge recounted hushed tales of a mysterious figure who appeared only on nights when the city seemed at its most vulnerable. "They say that when hope is almost lost," he confided, "a spark appears, sometimes in the form of a child, sometimes as a strange coincidence. But it's never just luck. It's as if the city itself is trying to heal its wounds." Jorge's words, though cryptic, suggested that there was a hidden logic behind the random acts of kindness and the shadowed crimes that plagued the streets. As the investigation unfolded, Elena began to connect the dots between seemingly unrelated incidents. A missing child whose last known location was near the alley, a string of petty thefts that escalated into violent confrontations, and whispers of an underground network that trafficked in secrets. Each new discovery hinted at a deeper conspiracy lurking behind the veneer of urban normalcy. The detective felt that Micah's gesture was a deliberate, if unspoken, protest against the pervasive corruption that had rendered the city indifferent to suffering. Meanwhile, Micah's life continued in a parallel, unobserved realm. The homeless boy, now a reluctant hero in the eyes of those who cherished his quiet defiance, had found himself at a crossroads. His decision to give up his only treasure was more than an act of compassion. It was a desperate cry for change, a statement against the unyielding cruelty of a society that had long abandoned him. Though he could not comprehend the full extent of his impact, the seeds of his generosity were beginning to sprout in ways he never imagined. The morning's investigation took an unforeseen turn when Elena received an anonymous tip. A hastily scribbled note warned her of a clandestine meeting scheduled to take place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The note hinted that the meeting would involve figures from the underground network, a potential link to the string of crimes that had destabilized the community. With her pulse quickening and a steely resolve setting in, she prepared to venture into the heart of danger. As the sun climbed higher, casting a deceptive warmth over the urban sprawl, Detective Reyes drove toward the warehouse district. The route was fraught with uncertainty. Every turn held the potential for revelation or peril. The building that loomed ahead was a relic of a bygone era, its walls scarred by time and neglect. Within its crumbling structure, Elena sensed that the city's secrets were tightly locked away, waiting for someone brave enough to expose them. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Dim light filtered through broken windows, and the stale air carried the echoes of past misdeeds. Elena moved cautiously, her every step measured against the backdrop of potential danger. In a shadowed corner, she discovered a cluster of individuals engaged in furtive whispers, voices low enough to be mistaken for the wind. Hidden in the interplay of shadows, Elena observed their movements, her mind racing as she pieced together the significance of their presence. Among the conspirators, she noticed an emblem, an insignia that resonated with the earlier clues and seemed to be a signature of the clandestine network. It was the same symbol that had appeared in photographs from previous crime scenes, a silent testament to a far-reaching influence that had infiltrated every layer of the city's life. Elena's discovery ignited a fierce determination within her. She realized that the network's machinations were not just responsible for isolated crimes but were part of a broader, more sinister design that threatened to erode the very fabric of the community. Back on the streets, word of the mysterious meeting spread like wildfire, intertwining with the story of the homeless boy and the crying baby. Elena understood that every thread was woven into a complex tapestry, and that Micah's unguarded act of kindness had inadvertently set off a chain reaction that might very well topple the powers that be. As she prepared to leave the warehouse, her thoughts were filled with both hope and apprehension. The city was on the brink of an upheaval, and the coming days would reveal whether justice and redemption would prevail over the shadows of corruption. Emerging from the dark confines of the warehouse, Elena's resolve hardened. She now carried not only the evidence of the clandestine meeting but also the moral weight of Micah's sacrifice. In a city rife with darkness, a solitary act of compassion could serve as a spark to ignite the flames of change. With every step toward the next chapter of her investigation, Detective Reyes vowed to protect the innocent and expose the truth, even if it meant risking everything to bring light to the hidden corners of the urban labyrinth. Under the pallid light of a waning moon, the city's undercurrents converged into a maelstrom of reckoning and hope. Detective Elena Reyes, armed with the damning evidence and a resolve forged through nights of quiet despair, prepared to confront the criminal cabal whose insidious influence had seeped into every corner of the urban labyrinth. The clandestine meeting at the abandoned warehouse had been only the beginning, a glimpse into a network whose tendrils reached far beyond petty crimes and into the very fabric of the community's trust. Now, with the weight of responsibility pressing down on her, Elena steeled herself for the final act of this dangerous play. The warehouse district was eerily silent as Elena returned under the cover of darkness. Every creaking board and rusted bolt whispered secrets of illicit transactions and shattered lives. Her mind replayed the symbols and murmurs from that fateful night, each detail serving as both a clue and a burden. The emblem etched on the conspirators' documents was now the linchpin of her case, a mark of a hidden society that had long manipulated the lives of the city's most vulnerable. Determined to dismantle this network, she arranged a covert operation that would expose its inner workings once and for all. Meanwhile, in a modest shelter on the fringes of the district, Micah lived a life of quiet resilience. Ever since he had given his only toy to the crying baby, a symbolic gesture that had set so many events in motion, he had felt an inexplicable shift within himself. What began as a simple act of kindness had morphed into a beacon of hope, drawing the attention of those who sought change amid despair. Unbeknownst to him, his life was about to intersect with the broader struggle for justice in a way that would transform not only his own destiny, but that of the community he had long called home. As dawn approached, Elena's team, cloaked in the anonymity of darkness, infiltrated a long-abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. Rumors had pointed to this location as the nerve center of the network's operations. With meticulous precision, they combed through the dilapidated building, uncovering ledgers, photographs, and digital files that painted a damning picture of corruption, extortion, and betrayal. Each piece of evidence was a testament to the systematic exploitation of the vulnerable, a system that had thrived in the shadows for far too long. Within the factory's cavernous main hall, Elena discovered a room filled with monitors, their screens flickering with live feeds from hidden cameras scattered across the city. This was the network's eyes on the streets, a surveillance apparatus that had allowed it to manipulate and control, all under the guise of maintaining order. Her heart pounded with the realization that these feeds captured not only criminal activities, but also the silent struggles of the city's citizens, stories of despair and forgotten dreams. The truth was there, etched in the digital glow, waiting to be broadcast to a world that had turned its back on them. With the evidence secure and her team poised for arrest, Elena coordinated with trusted allies in law enforcement. A series of simultaneous raids were launched across key locations identified in the network's files. The city was gripped by a sudden surge of activity as the dark veil that had shielded corruption began to lift. Sirens wailed in the distance, and for a fleeting moment, the city's residents sensed that justice was no longer a distant hope but a tangible reality. Back at the shelter, Micah felt a stirring he had not known in years, a mix of trepidation and cautious optimism. He had always believed that his small act of kindness might someday change the course of his destiny, yet he never anticipated that it would ripple out to challenge an empire of exploitation. In the midst of chaos, a familiar figure approached him, a volunteer from a local community outreach program who had been quietly observing the unfolding events. The volunteer's warm smile and gentle words reminded Micah that his sacrifice had not been in vain. Here, amidst the shifting tides of justice, his story had become part of a larger narrative of redemption. As the network's leaders were rounded up and the evidence was laid bare before the public, the city began to heal. Families who had long suffered in silence found solace in the truth, and a newfound determination to rebuild emerged from the wreckage of past transgressions. Elena's tireless pursuit of justice had not only dismantled a criminal enterprise but had also rekindled a sense of community, a belief that even in the darkest hours, the light of human compassion could prevail. In the final hours of that turbulent night, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon, Detective Reyes stood before a crowd of grateful citizens. With the evidence of corruption and exploitation now in the open, the community united in a chorus of resilience and hope. Her words, measured and resolute, echoed through the gathered crowd. "Today, we reclaim our city," she declared, her voice steady with conviction. "This is a victory for every soul that was ignored, every life that was exploited. Let this be a reminder that our collective strength and compassion can overcome even the darkest of adversities." As the city emerged from its long night of uncertainty, Micah watched from a distance, his eyes wide with wonder and cautious hope. The once overlooked boy had unwittingly ignited a spark that challenged a corrupt regime. In his heart, he knew that his journey was far from over. His small gesture of kindness had set a precedent, a beacon for those still lost in the shadows. And though he was but one small voice in a vast chorus, his story was a testament to the enduring power of compassion. Before the sun climbed any higher, Elena made one final stop, a modest community center where survivors and citizens gathered to share their stories of hardship and triumph. There, amid hushed conversations and quiet embraces, the narrative of the city was being rewritten. The lines between victim and victor blurred as every individual became part of a collective struggle for justice and renewal. In that sacred space, the true message emerged, that even the simplest act, a toy given away in a moment of empathy, could catalyze profound change. And so, as the city basked in the glow of a new dawn, the journey of healing and justice continued. The echoes of the night's revelations would resonate for years to come, inspiring a generation to stand against injustice and cherish the light of human decency. If you found this story as moving and thought-provoking as we did, please subscribe, like, and share for more captivating tales that explore the depths of human courage and the triumph of hope over darkness.